today's webinar. Today I am hosting Gworźdź, who is the CTO of Neoteric, and today we are about to discuss what benefits artificial intelligence can bring us and the businesses. Greg, you've got 10 years of experience in working in IT field, and you've been also working for 700 companies in the past. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background and how did you actually got into AI and how have you become an expert here?
Okay, so I started doing predictive analytics before it was even called AI. You might have heard about the case. I think it was with Target. Where Target predicted that the girl was pregnant before her or her parents actually knew about it. That was one of the products I was working on.
Mm-hmm.
During my work in the previous company, we worked on a couple of such solutions, and that data was fed to majority of the social platforms and Fortune 500 companies that are doing analytics and marketing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Greg, could you describe basically why e-commerce businesses should get interested in AI? What is so special about AI, and what is the effect on the bottom line? Because that's basically what interests most businesses.
Okay, so let me put it that way. When you're running a small local shop, you're able to know each and every one of your customers. You know where one specific person has birthday, where the other one is renovating a house, or that your neighbor became a parent.
Mm-hmm.
When you have million customers a day instead of 100, it's nearly impossible to do the same with such huge customer base. But those customers still expect and demand that kind of service. And without an automation and analysis that AI allows those huge businesses to use and to learn about their customers, they would simply not be able to provide such service. If you then do it, your customers don't buy enough. They start to churn and turn to competition that is able to provide them with the level of service they expect. With churn, let me put it that way. With one of the companies I was working on, they had a customer base of around a million customers, and decreasing the churn by 1.5 percentage points for them, that brought them around 2 million a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that's easily one of the best investments you can make. It not only helps you retain customers, but also get more out of the existing relationships with customers that you already have.
All right. So very often when we talk about AI, we talk about data and how we can utilize this data to get some meaningful insights. Some businesses may encounter this problem that they don't have enough data, or they need more data than they have at this point. So what would be your recommendations in terms of getting the right data, and actually to what extent is data important in this particular aspect?
So obviously, in case of predictive models and AI in general, the data is what experience in doing business is to us. Without the data, you can't do much.
Mm-hmm.
But on usually companies usually have much more data and much more information about their customers that they are aware of. Even simple information like someone has made some purchases in the history could easily give you a lot about that a lot of information about that customer and about that customer's behavior. One thing is the person is the location where the transaction was done. If it was a physical location, where that person and where that person is from. That location can be easily expanded into information about the area. So either a zip code or an address of such person could be extended with information about an average or median income, or the population density, popular branches of businesses, or events in such area, which can be easily either gathered from popular and widely available sources like Wikipedia, or even from open data that governments provide. Second thing is the time of such event. Date by itself doesn't give you much information, but knowing that your customers tend to do something on weekdays or on weekends, early in the morning or in the evening, and specific time of a year or season is quickly becoming really valuable, especially if you join it with info about the events happening in similar time, or the weather. When you put all of it together, simple information about Mr. John Smith has bought new sports shoes in a shop in Atlanta becomes a lot of information about such person.
So also we know a lot about successful use cases of other e-commerce businesses that have utilized the knowledge about their customers to build recommendation systems, as an example. And everyone would know Amazon that has extracted that has increased revenue by around 29%. And on average, when businesses implement this kind of recommendation systems, they are able to boost their revenue by 25% on average. So this is quite popular way to implement AI in e-commerce by building more precise recommendation systems. So what is your outlook on recommendation systems, and how do you see the efficacy of this particular aspect where AI can be fitted in e-commerce?
Okay, so there are two ways in general that can help you. One is to first predict whether customers would keep being your customers, and that's saving potentially lost revenue. And the second one are those recommendation engines. Those recommendation engines use whole bunch of information to give info about new products for that specific person, and it's either helping new customers know more about your offer, or give meaningful information to existing customers. When you're dealing with a new customer, you want to avoid you want to help them get to your offer, either available movies on your streaming platform, or offer of shoes, and what they can customize. And with existing customers, you want to give them as much personalized experience as possible. When bought certain items from you and they've been your customers for quite some time, they expect you to know what they like and what they don't like. And sending them campaigns for items completely irrelevant to them would be really frustrating for them, and that's something that can even trigger them to switch to switch to another company.
Mm-hmm. So, in fact, is AI available for any e-commerce shop? And do you predict that in I don't know, 5 or 10 years, every e-commerce shop would have a smart recommendation system and would read behavior of its customers in a better way and understand more about the customers, have more information about customers? How would e-commerce shops compete? And do you basically believe that all of the e-commerce businesses will soon consider implementation of AI, and this competition will be even stronger next years?
I'd say they are already considering and implementing AI, even if those e-commerce platforms or shops are pretty small. With a couple of thousands of customers, you can already do a lot. And getting started with it is actually pretty simple. A couple of years ago, that was reserved for those Fortune 500 companies and millions of dollars in budget. But currently, you can easily get started in couple of thousand dollars of investment, and start learning about your customers. Even if the shop itself is not personalized, the campaigns you would be selling to your customers might be, and that would be a good point to start. After that brings you additional revenue, that's the place where you would be investing more into the platform itself, and push customers to do more business with you.
Mm-hmm. And if the an e-commerce business has got not so many items to buy, let's say it's gonna be just 20 or 30 items, it might apply for the cosmetics industry that has a limited offering, but still they might have a huge amount of traffic on the web page. They may have quite a lot of sales each month. Do you think, and have you checked it out, that AI also can help boost revenue in case of such limited offering shops that don't have thousands of items like Amazon?
Okay, so if you've got 20 or 30 items, mm-hmm. and a lot of customers and a lot of traffic, it's actually much easier to do recommendations and predictions what you should offer, because you can really aim precisely at that specific item or specific bundling. If you have to come up with the bundles from a few trillion of items, that's a volume that's extremely hard to tackle. And if you're starting with 20 or 30, that gives you a lot of value, a lot of info, how those items are purchased, and time to spend on each individual item instead of looking at them in bulk, without investing so much and without putting so much effort in processing that huge amount of information about the total sum of the products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and just from the point of view of the business that implements this system, what would be let's say the safest way to implement it? Because well, I don't think that businesses would like to go with the whole investment from the first step without even thinking about the consequences and the results expected from this kind of investment. What would be your approach to minimize the risk of the project being unsuccessful in the end, and how to basically test the waters to see if this is exactly the solution the business needs.
Okay, so what we're doing with our customers, we call it an AI sprint. It's the idea of checking whether whether we can spend a couple of weeks and see if we can learn more about customers and easily get implement that knowledge into learning. I don't know, churn prediction and keeping those customers. I'd say the road is first to know what you're aiming at. Those business goals are really crucial, and I'm not really sure, but a lot of companies tend to think of AI as a technical initiative. Well, it's mostly about the business. You need to know whether you want to reduce churn or increase revenue, and which of those two is more important for you, and what kind of increase or change in general would be good enough for you. Then you're looking at the data you are already collecting and kind of like brainstorming what we can do and how we would know that that customers would churn. What might be causing it? You grab all of the data sets you would like to have. You combine it with the data you are already collecting. You're checking which of those data sets can be easily enhanced with really a little effort, and you're picking the, let's call it, questions that would bring you most valuable information with as little effort as possible. Good example would be to let's try with churn. That's one of the easiest examples. You would start with defining what the churn actually is, whether it's someone canceling a contract, becoming inactive for about 6 months, not doing any transactions for a year. Knowing what the churn is, you want to, let's say, decrease the churn by 1%. So that 1%, 1 percentage point would be awesome. Half a percentage point would be something like we'll see, and less than 0.1%. That's something that already tells you it's completely not for you. Mm-hmm. You gather all the ideas, what might affect churn, and what would tell you about the churn. So obviously that's a purchase history, the demographics, marketing and communication with all those customers, whether they took any trainings or attended your webinars, whether they had any problems or sent some complaints. You check which one of those you already have, which one of those you can easily start collecting. You combine all of them in something like huge Excel table, and drop the table into machine learning engine. Those machine learning engines, that's something that you can even start with for free for a single model. Obviously, you need to know what you're doing, and that's why I strongly advise getting started with a consulting company. Once you get that results, you want to and the model, you want to use it in everyday work as fast as possible. Meaning, the fact that you have excellent reports, the model does not give you any value by itself. But giving that information to your salespeople on a daily basis and keeping it updated, which is pretty simple to do with a single model, would easily help you with the churn and would already start retaining more customers only after a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I understand that AI is not an ultimate solution, not an ultimate goal that we struggle to achieve, but the models would help us make informed decisions about what to do next with business to achieve this and this metrics or achieve this and this goal. Do you think that all companies basically understand that, or judging from your own experience of talking to these businesses and gathering feedback from the market, is the market well informed, or does the market understand AI in a wrong way?
A lot of people think about AI as a magic thing that can predict the future and do everything for us, and that's not exactly the case, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'd say the AI and being able to process the data is like super intelligence for people. It allows you to learn much faster and on much bigger scale. But you still need an intuition. You still need to know what you're doing, and without that human part, those algorithms can either make absolutely no sense or become extremely creepy or biased, which would actually discourage people to do business with you.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so just to illustrate what's being said here, and to illustrate the logic of how AI models work, could you provide us with some, let's say, serialized case study of what you've been working recently on? Where have you decreased churn or increased revenue? Because as a CTO, you basically deal with that on a daily basis, and you could share with us some case study.
So I'll stick with churn. That's definitely one of my favorite subjects. We're working with one of the biggest telecoms in Poland. Their case was much higher churn than the average on the market. A lot of effort put into contact with the customers, with actually worse results month after month, despite the effort getting bigger and bigger. They had some basic rules that they were following, but those churn prevention strategies were completely ineffective. So it was like couple of hundred of people calling around people that were about to cancel the contract, not being able to convince them to stay as customers, and basically burning through the budget with no results. What we did in there is we actually looked at all the data that they had. We organized it into this huge Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Added all the information about how the products were used, what might be interesting for those customers. Then, extremely important part in this case about the problems of those customers, whether they were reporting those problems or not. And got initial churn model out of the data. The initial results were so good that we keep double checking the model. We started with one of their most difficult customer segments. In their case, they were split by region. Initially, the churn reduction was around 30% on the total customer base. That was like 20% on average. And keeping those recurring payments on such level meant that we were basically started printing money for them. Mm-hmm. So once they knew who was about to churn, and we got that model to a level that was accurate enough and was still capturing a lot of churners, which was much. Getting all the churners, even with the accuracy being a bit lower, was more important in this case than the other way around. So next step, knowing who's about to churn, was to build a recommendation engine for those customers to suggest what kind of products would prevent them from leaving. Mm-hmm. We managed to initially that resulted in preventing churn without decreasing average revenue from customer, which is not an easy thing to do in that kind of business. But after the recommendation engine got better and we were able to predict who's interested in which product, the average revenue from customer actually grew, which we were really surprised by. That was completely against the trends in the industry.
Mm-hmm. And how much time is needed to implement the systems, and basically what is this time window between starting the project and seeing the results, that is basically higher revenue or lower churn?
In case of the telecom, the sales process and the retention process, that's an ongoing thing for them. So it was easy to get info as almost instantly after the models were deployed. It took us a couple of weeks to collect and cleanse the data, another week to build the model, and even with those first imperfect versions of the model, we already started to see the churn shrinking in that was something between a month to 3 months, depending on the customers, depending on the customer segment.
Mm-hmm. So pretty short time window, and not something like 1 year or 2 years.
Right. So it's easy to see quick results if you do everything to get started. We could build those keep building those models and keep improving them until we got to the results and accuracy that we wanted to get in the eventually. But even getting a bit better than choosing in random already started bringing cash to our customers. Once it started bringing cash, and those people using those prediction contact with customers got more certain that it actually works, and it start to help them in their everyday work. We got a buy-in from initial group. That initial group then helped us spread the solution within the company to others, and it was much easier to get an investment for expanding it, and then getting better results. Again, expanding the project, and then getting bigger results. We validated the project a year after it was running in production, and so that resulted in almost 2 percentage points of churn reduction, and slight increase in revenue per customer.
All right, and well, you've described this process that you first have to validate, set up some hypothesis, and then validate the model, see if it's working, and then investing more and more and more, and expanding the project even further. So I guess some companies would still prefer to do that in-house because they have their in-house IT teams. What dangers do you see in this scenario? What are the chances and the opportunities on the other hand in terms of using the in-house employees versus having an outsourced team, or just getting a consulting agency stepping in?
Okay, so I'd say you should, as a rule of thumb, you should keep the data in-house, but outsource the data science. Not the other way around. If you want to build the whole analysis and skill within your company, you want to get really good people, you're competing with companies like Google and Amazon to get really good scientists to build those models. The problem especially in e-commerce and smaller companies is that you cannot afford a team of data scientists and a team of business analysts and another team of marketing people that would give you the whole complete solution. The person you need is a really good data scientist with a knack for business. You don't want a person that's involved only in building models, but you want a person that would be able to stop after a certain point, knowing that this model is good enough, and there is no point in investing more time into improvements, because those improvements would be insignificant compared to the amount of time you would spend on it. And then again, hiring a great data scientist for your company that has a good knack for business, that's something that even those biggest companies have a problem of hiring. So outsourcing that part and having a person that would build the most difficult flows of data of the aggregations, get the initial version of model, improve it, and then pass it on to your people, teaching them how to use that model and how to further improve it. I'd say that's the way to go. On the other hand, keeping data in-house, there's a trend of using a lot of platforms that help you with interactions with your customers. That's great thing to start using them initially if you don't know yet what you're doing. But if you want to get really good results, you want to be able to integrate data from all of those data sources. The critical advantage that you would have over other companies, like we've spoken before, is when you can link data from different sources, both offline and online. And when you'd be using the same platform that hundreds of similar e-commerce shops are using, you basically don't get any advantage like that. But when you combine it with your with information about your content, then about the traffic on your landing page, the contacts with your customers, that's the point where you can get much bigger advantage.
So to sum up everything that's been said today, what action plan would you suggest to an e-commerce business considering implementing AI? Where to start from when the idea is just in their heads, and they think how to bring it to life and how to implement it and how to finally get the first revenue in 3 or 4 months after the project has started.
So with e-commerce, I'd say get that list of those common data sources that you probably have somewhere. Once again, that's the demographics, sales or purchase history, marketing and communication, product usage, and any specific problems. See what you already have in those specific data sets. Then try finding the part that would bring you the biggest value from top to bottom. I'd imagine churn is usually the in top 3, and then it's either increasing conversion or revenue from single transaction or customer. Build even initial version of a model with Google, let's say Google tools, or even built-in analytics from an Excel. And once you know there is some correlation between the problem you're trying to predict and the data, get a consulting company to help you start it. Those are the guys that have probably built hundreds, if not thousands, of similar models. They would be able to tell you which specific attributes you should look out for, where you can find the data that you are missing, and also what is really important in here, what not to do with your data to get you in problem with the legal department of your customers, or get significant consequences from GDPR violations. They would help you to pick the tools that are best suited for the people that you already have in your company. Set up everything to work smoothly, and have it test and help you test how well it's working. And then once you know it's working, you would probably already have some recommendations from the company you were working with, what to do next in case of specific outcomes from the pilot.
Okay, great summary of this talk, and definitely people watching this webinar would like to connect with you, and in case they have some other questions arising from this topic, they would definitely like to connect and ask you these questions. So could you mention where to find you and how to connect?
Okay, so I tend to respond really quick on LinkedIn. That's the first thing. Second option would probably be my email address. Let me drop it in there. Either one should be good enough.
Cool. So Greg, thank you for this talk today and delivering this information. Hope everyone enjoyed this webinar. You are welcome to approach Greg through any channels, connect and ask further questions. At this point, we thank you a lot for being a part of this webinar and see you all. Bye. Cheers.
Thank you.